everybody. I will be taking you through the steps of how to assemble your stage box. What we are working toward today is something that looks a little bit like this. But I will hopefully put a picture on screen of this exact project once it's done. So you can see what we're working toward. This is a mini model of it. That's about a third of the size that it will be when it's finally done. All right, so you should have picked up from the school an envelope. Yours will say some other notes on it, like your name and do not bend. I hope you didn't bend it. And then you'll also have a jar of black paint and a bottle of glue. Now this is Tacky Glue, that's the brand name, and it's really perfect glue for this. You should also have a paintbrush. You might have a bigger one than this, but this is the teeny tiny one that I have. So we'll put all that kind of stuff aside and we'll get started by opening up our container here and taking out all the pieces. Make sure you get them all out of the bag. You don't want to be missing any pieces. So let's go through what pieces you should have in order to start. And in the directions in the document that I included on Teams, you will find a list, a complete list of all of the pieces that you should have. But let's go through them here. You should have one piece that is labeled A. You should have two pieces that are labeled B. You should have two pieces that are labeled C. You should have 5 pieces that are labeled D. You should have one piece that is labeled F. You should have one piece that is labeled G. You should have 4 pieces that are labeled H. You should have one piece that is labeled K. You should have one piece that is labeled M. You should have one piece that is labeled P. You should have one piece that is labeled Q. You should have 8 pieces that are labeled S. And then you should have this little right angle checker. And it's gonna say right angle checker on it. And the purpose of this I will explain later. So hold on and set that one aside. Okay. So once you've figured out all of your pieces, kind of pile them up together, that way you can find them. The next thing you're going to want to grab is going to be your glue. Now, each of you should have gotten a bottle that looks just like this. It has a lid on it the clear lid should just come right off. So it should have sort of a little tiny top on the top of it that you can use that will let out just enough glue. This project shouldn't need a ton of glue. In fact, too much glue is too much. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find piece B, which is going to be one of these long strips here that's labeled with the letter B. You're going to need that, and you're also going to need the big piece that's labeled G, that's right here. I'll turn it upside down for you. So this is piece G, and this is going to make up part of the proscenium arch. And again, here on our little mini model, you can see it's right here. This is actually going to be the front-facing piece of the proscenium arch, and you can see that it's labeled with both the letter G and I can make that work. Yeah. With some numbers for each side. So, what you're going to do is you're going to take piece B and you're going to glue it onto the side marked with the number 1. Let's see if I can. Yep, right there. So that side is number 1. And you're going to glue your B piece right along the very edge of this piece, right along this edge. Okay. If you're worried about getting glue on your surface that you're working on, I'm not too worried about it because I've done this a couple times now. But you can use the folder that came with you, or that I sent home with you, to put underneath, and you can glue the piece so what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your glue and you are going to apply a really thin layer of glue along the very front edge of this piece. And again, it does not take much glue to do this. Like you can see that I'm adding just like a really thin layer. Okay, cool. So that's piece G and side 1. And what you're going to do is you are going to line this piece B up on the very edge of side G. Okay, and once you get it into position, you can use the right angle checker, which is this guy. You can use the right angle checker to check your angle. So the way that that works is you can just, all of these connection points need to be at a right angle. So you can just slide this up against the edge of what you're working on. Let me flip it the other way, maybe you can see it better. So that you're checking to make sure that this little piece is being glued on at a right angle. Okay. And it's not too difficult to get it perfectly right. But if you get all the pieces at a right angle, it will work better. Now, once you get the glue on and you get it positioned right where you want it, you're going to hold the piece down for about 30 seconds. So you're going to count to 30 until it sticks on its own. Okay. Great. Now this piece is connected, but it's still pretty fragile. What you can do is you can come in and sort of like wipe any excess. Let's see if I can get that. You can wipe any excess that you have off of the very edge of the pieces, like this. Just sort of like rub in any excess glue that's like sticking out. Ultimately, we're gonna paint over this, but I will say that this glue does not dry clear, or it doesn't dry fully clear. So you wanna not have a bunch of glue like squeezing out in between the edges here. Cool. All right, so we've gotten our first piece attached. Now again, this is still really fragile, so don't, bang it around. You wanna be as gentle as possible while the glue is still setting. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to attach 2 pieces that are labeled D. So pull out 2 pieces that are labeled D here, and we're gonna attach these right on the edges. So we're gonna attach these on side 4. We're gonna attach it on side 4 right here and side 8. And you're just gonna repeat what you did up here on the top. You're gonna repeat that on these edges right here. So you're gonna take your glue bottle and you're gonna apply a consistent line of glue right along the edge here. Trying to get it like right up on the edge of the piece. Okay. Then you're gonna apply the piece right into that glue, right up on the edge of the piece. And you want this piece to come right into the corner here. You want it to be really like flush in this corner with the piece that you already put on, piece B. So line that up as best you can, and then apply some pressure to it. As you're applying pressure, you can, check your angle with your little right angle checker. But even if you apply about 30 seconds of pressure first and then check the right angle, the glue is not fully dry, so you'll be able to just make some minor adjustments to it after you apply 30 seconds of pressure. So count to 30 again. So we've gotten this applied here. We have D applied on now. It should come to a nice little corner here in the edge, right there. If you want, you can apply a little bit more glue right in that corner to connect those pieces, but ultimately they're going to be connected by the top piece that we put on. So let's go ahead and put on the second D piece that we're going to put on. We're going to put it on side 8. So look for the 8 label, and we're going to line it up right there. We're going to add some glue, and we're going to apply another D piece to the very edge here. Just a reminder, it doesn't need a lot of glue, but you do want to have like a consistent line. I actually press the glue tip down on the board while I'm sliding it over. And it doesn't really matter on these pieces if the letters are facing in or out, because ultimately we're going to paint this black, this whole thing, so you won't see it either way. So apply that 30 seconds of pressure. And I am, just for the sake of this being really secure, I am going to apply just a little bit of glue into this little corner here. And I can do that by just putting the tip down in there and just putting just a little bit right into the corner. And that'll ultimately, as long as it's touching both pieces, it's going to sort of fuse those two corners there. This is a good time while everything is drying to come in with your right angle checker again, and you're going to check those angles and make sure that where these are connecting, there's a nice right angle and that the edges are lined up. And it's okay if you get a little glue on the right angle checker. It's not a big deal, because the right angle checker is ultimately just for you to check the angles, and it's not going to actually be part of the assembly at all. Awesome. If you refer to our notes here in that Word document that I put on Teams, the next step is going to be to add a piece labeled F to the side marked 2. So you can see here, let me flip this around again. We can see here that this side is labeled 2. And we also need to find, I've knocked over my pieces here, we need to find the piece labeled F. So there it is. And we're going to put that on side 2, which is right here. Okay. And this is a little tricky because we want to make sure that it's lined up exactly over the top of this edge. So go ahead and apply your glue along side 2. And then we're going to put piece F right onto that spot. And sometimes if you get the glue a little too far in, what you can do is use the edge of the piece you're gonna stick and kind of sweep the glue out toward the very edge. And that's a good way to catch all the glue that you've put down, and also make sure that your piece is right on the very edge. Oops, I think I put my head right in the way. It'll be a little tricky to get your little right angle checker in here, but you can put it on the outside and just make sure that you got a good right angle there. And again, apply 30 seconds of pressure. Awesome. And it should look like that. Okay, we've got a nice inside edge here. Okay. The next step is step number 6. We're going to attach a piece labeled C onto G on the side marked with the 3. Okay, so just repeat the same thing. We're going to put glue and then attach the piece. Great. I'm just going to check that angle. I did end up with a little of what's called squeeze out, which is where I have a little bit of extra glue right on the outside. I think you can see that right there. And that's fine. That's not the end of the world. But I do like to wipe it off. And you can do that with a paper towel. But or your finger, just be really gentle when you do it, because it's not fully set. All right, so step number 7 is the same. We're going to take another piece labeled C, and we are going to attach that piece to the side marked number 7. So here's number 7. It's right here on the inside. So we're just going to repeat our same method. Glue. Align the piece, check for the right angle, hold for 30 seconds, And I'm applying just a little bit of glue into the corners here where these two pieces meet so that, you know, they stay nice and glued closed. Great. All right. So now we have a tricky part coming up. We are going to be attaching the other side of this piece. So ultimately what we want to turn this into, here's a mini one, is we need this to be enclosed. So we need to attach the other side of this piece. So we're going to take piece that's labeled A here, right there. And we are going to basically glue this right onto the face of these pieces. And you'll see why it was so important to have everything at a right angle so that everything lines up. Now remember before I said it doesn't really matter if the letters are in or out. But on this piece in particular, we want to make sure that the side with the letter and these two boxes is facing out. And so you'll need that much later in our assembly process. So just make sure those are pointing out rather than in. If you did glue it with them facing in, it's not a big deal. But if you haven't done it yet, try to keep them facing out. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is a little bit different than the other way. We're going to apply glue to the edges of the pieces that we have sticking up. So I'm going to be applying glue right onto this edge. Can you get that to focus? There we go. We're going to be applying the glue right onto this edge that's pointing up of all of these edges that we just glued on. Okay, so we'll do that first, and then we'll put the piece on top. All right, so I've gotten glue on all of it. I will say this is a little tricky, this part. So if you didn't quite get it right on top and it's a little bit down the side, you could just take your finger and just kind of push the glue and sort of spread it back onto the top. You want to make sure that the glue is actually on the edge of the pieces and not just like on the side, because it's not going to do it any good on the side because it's nothing touching it. So once you feel pretty good about the amount of glue that you have on your piece, you are going to take the piece marked A, and you are going to line up the side that has the A on it with the top. Now the top is on the other one is the side that has the G on it. So you want the A and the G to be basically right. They don't have to be exactly right over the top of each other, but you want them to be right over there, near each other. Okay, so you're gonna gently sort of set this on top, and you can slide it around a little bit to make sure that it is sitting on top of all of the edges and the edges are all lining up. And this can be a little tricky, so don't panic. But once you have all your edges lined up and they're flush and even, again, the better that you did the right angles the first time, the easier this is gonna go. You're gonna go ahead and hold it down for 30 seconds. And again, be kind of gentle with it. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. But you're gonna press down on it for 30 seconds to get a good seal there. Okay, and when you're done, you can kind of sort of wipe any sort of excess glue off that's squeezing out of the edges. That will also help sort of seal the edges a little bit to have you swipe your finger across the glue edge. And when you're done, you will have a piece that looks like this. And there will be a gap in the bottom because we did not add anything to the bottom yet, but we will add it later. And this is going to make the proscenium arch of your theater. So we talked about the word proscenium. Again, here's our tiny model. This is going to make up this part of the stage, the proscenium, so the frame that goes around the front of the stage. So just set that aside somewhere where it can dry fully. Again, it's not totally dry, so it's good to sort of put it somewhere where it's not going to get messed with by like a cat or a sibling or something like that.